Chapter 1. The Problem with Shouting at Reality. Affirmations have become one of the most celebrated tools in personal development. They are repeated endlessly, shared widely, printed on mugs. And for most people, they do nothing. Not because language has no power, but because unsupported language is ignored. Saying something does not make it real. Repeating it louder does not help. Reality is not impressed by confidence theater. Breathe. Here is the structural issue. An affirmation is usually a statement that asks the mind to accept something without evidence, without embodiment, and without context. I am successful. I am confident. I am healed. The subconscious does not hear inspiration. It hears claims. And when claims contradict lived experience, the system responds with rejection, sometimes politely, sometimes with resistance, sometimes with quiet sabotage. This is why affirmations often backfire. The more you repeat something that does not match your internal state, the more the mind flags it as untrue. The louder the repetition, the stronger the rejection. Not because the mind is negative, because it is accurate. From a consciousness perspective, the observer does not update reality through assertion. It updates reality through coherence. Words alone do not create coherence. The observer effect in quantum theory is not about watching harder. It is about interaction with the system. Language that floats above experience does not interact. It bounces. Hermetic teachings said this clearly, long before modern psychology tried to soften it. As within, so without was never about saying the right sentence. It was about internal agreement. If belief, perception, and identity are not aligned, language is decorative. Here is the dark humor part. Affirmations fail not because people are lazy. They fail because people are intelligent enough to detect when they are lying to themselves. The system hears, "That is not how things work here." And it responds by preserving consistency. Reality values consistency more than optimism. Breathe. So the problem is not that people are using language. The problem is how they are using it. Change does not happen when you speak at reality. It happens when language is embedded into life itself. When words move with breath, with action, with perception, with identity. When language stops trying to convince and starts confirming what is already unfolding. That distinction changes everything. Because the mind does not resist integration. It resists contradiction. Once you understand that, you stop trying to overpower your life with statements. And you start working with the structures that reality already respects. Which is where real transformation begins. Thought forms and why reality listens to them. Thought forms are not affirmations with better branding. They operate on a different layer entirely. An affirmation floats above life. A thought form rides inside it. That distinction matters. Reality does not respond to what you say occasionally. It responds to what you repeat automatically. Breathing, drinking water, walking, seeing, waking up, going to sleep. These are not habits. They are biological constants. Thought forms work because they attach meaning to processes that already exist. No effort required, no belief leap demanded, no performance anxiety. Breathe. A thought form is a complete sentence, gently paired with an unavoidable action. The action supplies credibility. The sentence supplies direction. For example, when you drink water, the body is already purifying itself. That is not spiritual. That is physiology. So when language aligns with what is already happening, the subconscious does not argue. It agrees. The system thinks, yes, that tracks. This is how resistance is bypassed. Quantum systems change state when interaction is consistent, not dramatic. Small inputs, applied repeatedly, reorganize the whole field. Thought forms do exactly that. They do not shock the system, they train it. Here is the subtle genius. Because the action is real, the sentence becomes plausible. Because it is plausible, it is accepted. Because it is accepted, it installs quietly. No fireworks, no backlash, no identity revolt. This is belief through osmosis. Dark humor moment. Most people fail with affirmations because they try to convince themselves they are already at the destination. Thought forms do something smarter. They speak to the process. They do not say, I am perfect. They say, this action supports improvement. The mind likes that. It feels honest. Hermetic wisdom understood this long ago. Energy follows attention, but attention follows what feels real. Thought forms borrow reality from the body. They piggyback on life. Breathe. This is why they are powerful. You do not have to remember them. Life remembers for you. Every breath becomes reinforcement. Every sip becomes alignment. Every step becomes installation. No struggle narrative required. And because they install slowly, they last. The subconscious does not rebel against what arrived gradually. It only resists invasion. Thought forms do not invade. They integrate. Once you see this, repeating empty statements in the mirror starts to feel unnecessary, almost charmingly inefficient. Because real change does not require shouting. It requires consistency, credibility, and contact with reality itself. And thought forms provide all three. Confirmations and the moment belief becomes real. There is a quiet moment most people overlook. A moment when something works, even slightly, and the mind rushes past it. That moment matters more than repetition, because belief does not form when you declare something. It forms when you recognize it. This is where confirmations come in. A confirmation is not a statement of desire. It is an acknowledgement of evidence. Small evidence. Subtle evidence. Often inconveniently modest, but real. An affirmation says, this is true. A confirmation says, yes, I can see it. That difference changes how the subconscious responds. The subconscious does not accept claims. It accepts proof. Not dramatic proof, incremental proof. From a neurological perspective, belief stabilizes when perception and interpretation agree. When something is noticed and named, the brain flags it as relevant. Relevant patterns are reinforced. This is not mystical. It is how learning works. Quantum observation follows the same logic. The observer effect is not about wanting an outcome. It is about interaction. What you acknowledge repeatedly becomes statistically dominant in your experience. Confirmations train attention to look for alignment rather than absence. Breathe. Here is why this matters. When a thought form is running in the background and a small change appears, the system has a choice. Ignore it, minimize it, or confirm it. Most people ignore progress because it does not look impressive yet. They think they are being realistic. They are actually interrupting installation. A confirmation seals the loop. It says, this is happening. not in fantasy. In perception, the moment you say, yes, I can feel that. Yes, I notice that. Yes, this is different. Belief density increases, not explosively, reliably. This is why confirmations feel grounded. They do not ask you to lie. They ask you to pay attention. Dark humor moment. People say they want change, but they refuse to notice it until it is undeniable. By then, the system has already done most of the work without their cooperation. Confirmations simply stop you from slowing yourself down. They reward the system for moving in the right direction. From a Hermetic view, confirmation is agreement, and agreement is power. When awareness agrees with what is emerging, resistance drops. When resistance drops, coherence increases. Breathe. This is why confirmations outperform affirmations. They do not compete with reality. They collaborate with it. They teach the mind what to keep, what to strengthen, what to expect again. And expectation, when grounded in perception, becomes a stabilizing force. Not because you demanded it, because you noticed it. Self-hypnosis and the rewriting of identity. There is a level where language stops negotiating and starts restructuring. That level is identity. Most methods fail because they aim too high or too shallow. Affirmations speak at belief. Thought forms speak through behavior. Confirmations speak through perception. Self-hypnosis speaks at the source. It does not argue with the mind. It temporarily steps around it. In hypnosis, the critical filter relaxes. Not asleep, not unconscious, just open. This is the state where identity becomes fluid. Neuroscience observes this clearly. When the analytical mind quiets, the brain becomes highly receptive to new associations. Patterns loosen, meaning reorganizes. From a consciousness perspective, this is when the observer is no longer locked into a single interpretation of itself. Hermetic teachings called this the plastic state, the moment where form can be reshaped without resistance. Breathe. Here is why this matters. Beliefs do not sit alone. They are nested inside identity. Identity decides what beliefs are allowed to stay. You can install new ideas all day long. If identity does not recognize them as relevant, they decay. Self-hypnosis works because it updates the container, not the contents. It does not say, believe this instead. It allows the system to experience itself differently. And experience rewrites identity far faster than logic. Dark humor moment. People fear hypnosis because they think they will lose control. What they actually lose is the exhausting habit of defending an outdated version of themselves. Self-hypnosis does not impose change. It removes the rigidity that prevents it. This is why it can feel immediate. When identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. No discipline required, no willpower speeches. Actions align because the internal reference point has moved. You wake up feeling like yourself, but not the same self. That sentence sounds strange until it happens. From the outside, it looks like confidence. From the inside, it feels like relief. Breathe. This is also why self-hypnosis must be gentle. Force reintroduces resistance. Authority collapses openness. The most effective sessions feel ordinary, quiet, even boring. And yet, afterward, something no longer fits. Old reactions lose relevance. Old limits stop feeling personal. That is identity updating, not dramatically, structurally. When identity changes, reality follows, because reality was responding to identity all along. Self-hypnosis does not fight the subconscious. It invites it to reorganize. And once that reorganization completes, the rest becomes easy. Almost suspiciously easy. Integration, when reality stops resisting. At this point, something should feel different. Not exciting, not dramatic, simpler. That is how integration announces itself. When change is real, it does not demand attention. It reduces friction. Affirmations failed because they tried to speak at reality. Thought forms worked because they moved with it. Confirmations stabilized belief because they acknowledged evidence. Self-hypnosis succeeded because it updated identity at the source. None of these work alone. Together, they form coherence. And coherence is what reality responds to. From a systems perspective, this makes perfect sense. A coherent signal travels farther with less energy. A coherent wave does not scatter. A coherent identity does not leak effort. Quantum mechanics describes this clearly. When elements of a system align, probability collapses efficiently. Outcomes do not need force. They need agreement. Hermetic wisdom said the same thing, just without equations. As within, so without, was never advice. It was a description of mechanics. Reality mirrors the most stable configuration available. Breathe. This is why change feels sudden when it finally works. Not because it was sudden. Because resistance was removed, the system did not speed up. It stopped slowing itself down. Here is the dark humor. Most people spend years trying to convince reality. Reality was waiting for consistency. When belief is installed through life itself, when perception confirms what is emerging, when identity no longer argues with direction, reality has nothing left to push against. So it moves, quietly, efficiently, without asking permission. This is why effort drops after alignment. This is why discipline fades into habit. This is why growth stops feeling heroic. Heroism is required only when you are misaligned. Aligned systems do not struggle. They function. Breathe. If there is one thing to remember, it is this. Reality does not respond to repetition. It responds to integration. It does not change because you demand it. It changes because you become compatible with what you are asking for. At that point, asking stops. Movement happens. And when movement happens from coherence, it sustains itself. No maintenance, no motivation speeches, no inner conflict, just continuity. That is the real work, not becoming someone new, but stopping the argument with who you already are. When that argument ends, reality follows, and nothing needs to be said after that.